Hi everybody, it's Ditza from Atlanta Diamond Design, and today we are going to create our Valentine's Day special initial charm pendant. And I am going to make one for our friend Pat with the letter P. And I'm going to use this machine from 75 years ago. So it's pretty cool to see how I turn this into a pendant with a P on it. So let's get started. So here's the pendant I'll show you. And the biggest pain with any piece this small is work holding. And there's almost, it's almost a whole art in itself, work holding. And what I have here, I don't know, I think it's steel. This cup, you can't tell now because it's full of material, but it was empty before, and I filled it with something called Thermo-Lock. And Thermo-Lock is actually pretty cool. It's a plastic material. When you heat it up, it gets soft, and then when you leave it at room temperature, it hardens. And so what I do is I use my heat gun to get it warm enough that it's pliable. If I put it in the microwave, obviously there's issues putting metal in the microwave, but when it's new and it doesn't have little pieces of metal in it, and I just want to liquefy it, I can put it on a piece of Teflon in the microwave and it gets completely liquid. But right now, all I want to do is get it to the point where it's pliable so that I can put my charm in there and get it to hold it in place. I also have to make sure that I do it perpendicular so that it doesn't come out crooked in the engraving. There's a lot to think about. Most of this I do by eye. So here we go. Okay, so it's kind of warm. Let's try it out. This is very hard to touch now, so I just want to make sure that I get my pendant. I have to also make sure I don't do it on the wrong side. On one side it's stamped 14K, and that is the back. You don't want to engrave the back. This is a great moment for this old chopstick. I like to use wood because it doesn't scratch the metal as easily as some of the, let's say, tweezers or more abrasive tools. It doesn't need to be perfectly centered on here, although that's very nice if you're that talented to do that. It just, I wonder if you could even see what I'm doing here. Hold on. Let's get real close in here. So I'm trying to get the bail sunk in enough that there's material for the Thermo-Lock to grab onto. So you see, I got it warm enough that it's pliable. I don't really need it much warmer than that. If it gets to the point where it's liquidy, which it does get to that point, then the issue is that now there's not enough I'm sorry, that's Mario making all that noise. His work is more important than mine, so. So there's like a fine line between liquidy and pliable. If you get it too liquidy, then your pendant will just kind of sink in, and that's not really great. Okay. This looks good. I'm kind of moving the material I'm holding a camera with one hand, which I generally don't recommend while you're working on jewelry. I'm moving the material right up to the edge. If I get it sunk in too far, it'll be very difficult to engrave. I also don't want any part of it to get hidden under the Thermo-Lock. Okay, so it's time for a break. Even though this looks good, I can't use it yet. It has to cool off and get really hard. And like it is right now, it's still going to move if I put any, oh, sorry, here you are. It's still going to move if I put any pressure on it. So I'm going to let it sit for maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes to let it get really hard. And to speed up the process, I'm going to stick it in the freezer, and that'll make it hard really fast. So while we're waiting for the Thermo-Lock to harden up, I'll talk a little bit about this new Hermes. Mario was punking me when I turned off the camera. He's like, you know, Ditza, I don't think it sounds good that you're using a 75-year-old machine. And I said, you know, it goes both ways. Some people are like, look at this state-of-the-art laser engraver that was just invented last year, and look at me, I have all the most modern, fancy technology. And we do have some of that, and we'll do a video with our 3D printer and all that cool stuff. But I think there's also a romantic kind of, instead of, you know, computers, actually using machines and doing things the same way people did them 75 years ago. I think there's something kind of cool and romantic about that too. And there's a lot of, you know, I don't know, my brother was saying they don't even make the fonts for these anymore. I have to look into whether that's true or not, but you know, you get these machines usually when someone dies. So we're going to be using this script font, but there's like a bunch of different fonts available, much like typesetting. This is probably going to remind people of like printmaking, when you have to actually put every single letter in place. So you have to grab the actual letters from the font that you want to use. So I'm just doing one letter. There's a limit to how much you could fit across here. If you were to do, you know, the whole thing, that would be like, let's say, a bracelet with a long ID bar. But today we're just doing that little pendant, and it's just the right size for an initial. So I'm just putting these two on either side to create a square to hold the P in place. And I am going to get it centered on the machine. So these numbers, there's a 0 and then it goes out to help you center it. That is not nearly as important though as centering it on the piece. And I'll go grab our charm in the Thermo-Lock now and show you how that works. Okay, so here's our charm in the Thermo-Lock. It's not budging anywhere, so it's ready. And now we have to hold onto this cup using this horizontal bar with these. So it just, every single piece is its own unique challenge when it comes to work holding. And so that's like really the most creative part of this endeavor, is figuring out how to hold your work in place. So this right here, these two knobs, I hope you could see. It's very difficult to show you, but so the way that I tightened that up is this knob right here. So now that's being held in place, but you can move it around now, like this, and you could even twist it if you need to. You have to really undo this, and then it allows, wonder. So it goes side to side, up and down. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, your best friend when you're doing engraving like this is magic tape. Yes, the same kind that you use to wrap your Christmas presents. I am going to put it on top of my little charm here. I'm going to, it's okay, Mario. It sounds like a dentist's office here because we use all the same equipment. Okay. So, I put 3 layers. I don't know what happened, but this was not giving me this problem before. See where I can't even get it over this? So I'm gonna do my best and try and see if this will work. And I see that I could make this go up a little. I do, but I don't think I can make it go up enough to clear this. So we're gonna try. Okay. And we're gonna really squeeze that in tight. It's not going anywhere, it's fine. And now, yes, that will work. But if I put my, if I put my pin here on the track, I could see that I'm very way off. Here, I'm gonna make you a little bit lower. Maybe it'll help you see better. Hold on. Okay, hopefully you could see better now. I know you won't be able to see what's going on up here, but you know that it's my P is up here, and that is what I'm using with this style, like, I don't know, I guess it's like a stylus, and that sits here and goes on this track, and you see it makes this needle here move. So as long as I keep this on the track, this should engrave the exact same thing here onto my pendant. But you see it's in the wrong spot. So I have to move my pendant into place. And the next thing I have to do is make sure the size is correct. So up here you have these numbers. I see 2.5 to 6 over here. I see, oh, I'm sorry, there is a 7. It's hidden under this 75-year-old dust. 2.5 to 7 over here, and 2.5 to 7 over here. And basically, when you're at 2.5, it's large. It's a very large engraving onto your piece. When it's at 7, it's a very, very small proportion. And I think I already did one of these, so I think the 4 3/4 is what worked out for me really well. But each letter is unique. And so I'm going to make sure that the P fits in here really well at 4 3/4. But so what I'm doing is I'm kind of very lightly kind of looking to see where are the parameters of my P. And I feel like it's sitting just a little bit too high on the pendant. So I'm still moving things around. Top, right? So now I'm going to tighten this up, because you really need no movement. Movement is your worst enemy in engraving. So everything needs to sit still while you're pushing it around. Now remember, we're just doing a practice run with our 3 layers of magic tape. I'm pushing very lightly. And this should really just be engraving onto the tape. Do you see that? I feel like it looks really good. I feel like if I go any bigger than that, it's going to be kind of pushing like the edges and looking like it's too big for the space. You know, I like for things to have space to breathe, to look really pretty, and I don't know, I think that looks tight. So I'm going to go ahead and engrave that. So I'm taking my tape off and see there's nothing there. The tape absorbed all of the engraving. I don't know if you could see it on here, the P. But yeah, there's absolutely nothing on my surface. I've done this where I've used a lot more tape than this. I happen to have done quite a few of these charms before I started this video. So now that I decided everything is where I want it to be, I'm tightening everything up, and this is the real deal. There's no turning back. So I'm going to be pushing down on this handle to get this pin right here to engage with the pendant. And then this right here is going to be what I use to actually do the shape. Okay. Here we go. There it is. So now I'm going to warm this up again, the Thermo-Lock, pull my pendant out, and I'm going to put it in the ultrasonic to clean off any leftover bits of Thermo-Lock, and then we'll package it up and show you how it looks when it's all finished. But there it is. I had one more thing I thought of. Customers sometimes ask, well, if it's just 1 letter, why does it cost the same as 5 letters or 10 letters? Depending on the piece, I don't think I could fit more than 1 letter on this pendant in particular. But the real labor with engraving is actually the setup. As you saw, once I started the engraving, if it had been 3 more letters, if the piece would have been larger, it would not have made a difference in the time. It's really the setup, and that's why there's really no difference in the price for engraving several letters, or if, you know, a price break for engraving just 1 letter. It's really about you're paying for the labor of the setup more than anything else. And then some people ask why a monogram is so much more expensive. It's because you're setting up the large center letter, and then you're calibrating 2 letters on each side. It's actually really complicated. It gets so complicated sometimes to do it with this machine that it's just as well sometimes to do it by hand. Hand engraving is a whole nother animal, and we'll get to that in another video. So while I was waiting for my Thermo-Lock to freeze on my charm so that I could flick it off with my fingers or with my nail, Mario, my peanut gallery, again had a comment that Thermo-Lock dissolves in acetone, and he is 100% correct. But if you look at this manicure, you will see why I don't jump right away to acetone. He's laughing in the background. I don't know if you could hear it. I'll show you his manicure, and you'll see why he doesn't mind so much to have acetone. The point is, he's absolutely right. And if you get to the point where your Thermo-Lock is really sticking to your piece, acetone is a great solution. And you can use, you know, tweezers or something. You don't have to use your fingernails. But I also find that if it's just a tiny little amount, freezing it and then flicking it off works really well for me. And I get to keep my manicure. The other thing he said was that he really loved learning about the magic tape, because as long as he's been doing, how long have you been doing jewelry, Mario?
Ooh, 29, 28 years, something like that.
Yeah, see, he's been doing jewelry longer than I've been alive. Just kidding, just kidding. So as long as he's been doing it, he never heard about the magic tape trick, which I didn't invent myself. I learned that from one of my mentors. So it's really nice to share tips like this, even when you're watching just a For the People video. As an experienced jeweler, you could learn a new trick. So we'll go get our pendant out of the freezer and get it cleaned up and ready. Okay, here it is, the final product. Pat, I hope you love it. It was made with love at Atlanta Diamond Design. Thanks everybody for watching. Happy Valentine's Day.